36.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see everyone. You guys had sent over an agenda, and looks exactly like kind of what I figured we'd be discussing today. You got number one on there is talking about what we did in the subcommittee. I can lead out with a little bit of that. Looking at you guys looking at our sheets, and we reviewed our files. We're pretty well in line and similar with that. Those numbers continue to flux and move as we have people come in, people come out. We need to kind of down at the bottom of something, we've got it to set another time to come together again with that committee. I feel like we need to do that as the CFO, Mr. Ward, is continuing to try and update that file and with things moving around. What he's seeing is dependent upon how much is in that leftover pot that would go to after the people in the 20% that are not in classroom are brought up to a minimum. Depending on how much money is left in that, the 315 is what we talked about in the committee. And what he wanted me to bring up today is he's seeing calculations that could bring it to 295, or that could go up to 350 depending on how much was left in that pot. And I think that's why we want to sit down and kind of go over that file with you guys again. But I think it just kind of moves a little bit depending on, and we kind of discussed that minimal amount that's left over anyway. We want to be mindful of that. It's not a whole lot, no matter how much is there by a few $1,000s or give or take either direction. The one number that he was talking about that if it went up to the 350, that was if you use all of that money to set the new baseline with the non-classroom included. That's where that 350 number would come to. So that, do you guys have some other to add in? I'm sure you do from our discussion.
It got a little confusing at one point, but I think what he said was the remaining money, once you move the base, was about $35 per teacher that was left in the TSIA.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
much.
It was little.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure my recollection was correct.
I can't remember the exact figure he gave, but it was not much. So I think, it'll be interesting to see kind of how the state continues to support that initiative or not support it going forward. But I think we just got to keep inching towards that minimum. I'm signing in twice. I need to do that. Trying to get to that 47.5 that the state has gotten to, and our largest neighbor is there in Orange, and then our smallest neighbor in Sumter is there also. Marion and some of the other counties around us, they might be a little bit ahead of us. I think Marion looks to see what we do, and then they add like $500 on top of it every time, or $100 on top of it, which might not be bad strategy on their part, but they drive me nuts with that. So that's basically the sum of that. We did talk about how paper performance, that wasn't the core of the discussion, because the subcommittee was supposed to be talking about teacher salary increase allocation. But we did talk about how in June we kind of took a 2% because we knew we could beat the timeline on the law, which allowed us to get more to the more experienced teachers in June, rather than wait and bring it to the table after July 1, because then the new law kicked in that would force the money back to the bottom and take away a lot of our freedom to do what we need to do with that money. And you guys expressed a desire for additional paper performance. And that's not something we're there yet on, but I do, I see you've got discussion of MOUs on here. I think we're very interested in seeing what, we have some ideas and what we can brainstorm around. How do we make, is there a way to get the TSIA in with the contract language and then a bonus rolled in with it to something that you guys feel like could be ratifiable with you guys' group? So that's kind of all that in a nutshell.
What about family empowerment scholarships? We have a date. We're going to be finding out how much money we might lose out of the FEFP.
Okay,
Of course, family empowerment, but we don't know that
He
yet.
doesn't know that yet, but
Right.
yes, we did discuss that.
That's a big unknown.
Yes, it's interesting. When the state's trying to pry money out of our public schools and put it in private schools, they're probably figuring out how to package that still. I don't think either of us are a big fan of that.
That's pretty much what I remember. No, I haven't passed these out at all.
Okay, what do you have to make?
I made 20,
Oh, okay.
I believe.
So do our people have them, they just need
They,
them?
no, everyone, you, I, and Elizabeth are the only ones that need them, and I made 20. Not 20 there?
Yeah, there's not 20 here.
How many there?
3, 6, there's 8. So we need
I don't need one. You don't need one.
3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 at least, so we.
You and I can share, or Dale and I
Yeah.
can share.
Five,
That's
six,
I don't
seven,
need,
fine.
yeah, we're fine.
You
I don't
got
need
more
one.
info?
Yeah, she's in front
I think they don't want it, it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's just worried about data. He doesn't worry about language.
Yeah, we got plenty for 11.
I sent this, so there should be a few more there.
Yeah, I gotta get them. So they get a couple more times. People can hold up. Article 10, we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit, but page 2 is what we've discussed. And then 3, and I'm pretty sure everything is still the same on those two that we've discussed before.
Okay.
And then 4 should still be the same that we have discussed. We
Okay.
didn't put anything different, nothing there. All right, and then it starts with page 5.
Mhm.
Basically, we just want, I guess, some clarification, I would
Okay.
say, on the idea of absorbing
Mhm.
the students,
Mhm.
meaning that this is when a teacher has their students, elementary, middle school, high school, whatever, but they have their class, English class, whatever, and they now have had to absorb 5 students now from Miss Smith's class,
Mhm.
and now they're absorbing it, and then it's, whether it's one period or all day long, whatever, but they are absorbing these kids, and it has to do with the classroom time, not their plan time, correct?
So
And that was the only thing we really wanted to make sure that we were, in clarification, because of course we're having
so
a lot of people.
so tell me what your question.
We just wanted the clarification, as I said, on the absorbing. We didn't want it to think that, and it might be easier once you see 11, because they somewhat, lack of a better word, they kind of contradict each other.
Okay. And
Okay, and so for right now, for the purposes, until we can fix this later on, we're just trying to get some clarification, because some administrators are saying one thing and other administrators are saying another thing,
okay.
on the fact of how they're absorbing students and or how they are working during their plan time of substituting.
Okay.
So we're just wanting some clarifications
Well,
for
and-
later on.
Here's what, and this is something I feel like we do need to talk a little bit about, because we saw a majority of absorbing at the elementary level,
It was
right?
elementary.
And that's why I just want to be open with you. It's growing because the shortage is hitting hard,
It's
and
everywhere.
I'm seeing it in our middle schools.
And high school.
And high schools, but I'm seeing it in our middle schools, and in some cases where we're trying to work and figure out what to do. So I think it's a conversation we probably need to continue to figure out what we can do for those folks. I talked with a couple principals. That's why I was a little bit late getting over here, because I was on the phone with one, and she's advocating for teachers and trying to figure out what to do, because they are absorbing, and hadn't been a big practice at the middle school level. And so I've got, I didn't have time to schedule it when I left today, but I'm scheduling something for very early next week to sit down with senior staff and see, how we can remedy some of that and maybe do more for them. So I just wanted to put that out there because it's the topic we're on.
And like I said, this sort of goes along with the portion
Okay,
in 11.
okay.
So it somewhat kind of goes together. But if you want to do it now, or you want to do it after we kind of have the discussion with 11, either way. But as long as we have that clarification, I
Yes.
think we're okay with 10.
Okay, all right.
Well, we probably need to suspend the fact that we're in the middle of the COVID and say, if COVID wasn't here, what would normally be happening it would be affecting elementary school teachers
Yeah.
mostly, and they would go with that class that they're absorbed into
Yeah.
for art and PE, so the elementary teacher still gets their planning time. It's just COVID is,
10 makes sense under normal circumstances, but
And if
what
we have
was
to-
extraordinary is becoming
Right.
more extraordinary, so that's where I guess you'll talk about. So if you want to keep moving forward, then we can combine them when you get there.
right,
Good.
well, and if we have to come up with something special for COVID, that would be an MOU, because
Yes.
we're not gonna change the contract to fit COVID,
Gotcha, no.
because I want it to go away.
I've tried to make anything official, I'm like, no, not put the word COVID in it, I'm like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I don't want that. So that's the only thing we had for that, so if you want
Okay.
to. And then this is 11.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm not sure we have plans.
We should have plenty of those. Okay, and then Article 11, the first thing that was different was on page 2, which we agreed to take out the faculty meeting. And then page 3, it starts at the top, the 2-week advance notice. That was okay, we took off the number 3. And then down in section 3, which is the planning period, which is where I'm saying it somewhat goes along here with 10, because we want to get some clarification again on the plan period. But the first one is, what section, did it come out in red on the others? Okay. There was a fragment, and so we added the portion that's in red onto that, just so it's a full sentence. So it's basically clarifying the supplementary pay based on the teacher's hourly rate of pay. Because the other way, there was a fragment and it wasn't a full sentence.
Okay.
So you really didn't know what the supplementary pay was, what that meant. So I believe we've captured what that sentence would say. Because you can't say, as you have part of this in here, I believe, and then you will receive, you had result in supplementary pay, and that's why that was the fragment.
So you're saying if it can be broken, but as long as it's approved by the majority of the smaller group.
Which in this case, it's mainly electives,
Yeah.
so you might as well say.
But-
Okay, so elective teachers, basically, we can just use them for an example.
Yeah.
So if they do this majority vote, and they do this anonymous vote, which is not Google or anything else, it's an anonymous vote, school-wide, so they say, yes, this is a deviation of the 45-minute plan, then someone that is in that category, they receive less than 45 minutes during that plan time, they will receive supplementary pay based on the teacher's hourly rate of pay, which was already in there, but all we did was, like I said, make that into a complete sentence versus, we didn't change anything that you wanted in there. All we did was then say, basically a repeat of the beginning, just to make it as a full sentence.
So as long as it's a reasonable, if it has to be, the 45 minutes has to be broken in a separate time period, as long as it's reasonable and they still get their 45 minutes total, they're fine. But
Which is what you have up here.
if
so
they
yeah.
do the break and they say, well, all you get is 30 minutes and we just want you to eat it, based on their hourly rate of pay, we need to supplement them with 15 minutes. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
But like Dorinda, she was saying that she
Yeah.
had 30 minutes and then they had
Yeah.
15 or 20 minutes, whatever it
Yeah.
was. And so that made the 45 minutes
Yes.
at that point.
That makes sense.
And I think what we're hearing is it's mainly electives because of the plan periods, they just couldn't get it and whatever, but. So,
Well,
and again, and I understand that, and I understand that, they don't have, they have a different type of
Yeah.
instructions that they do, but they don't have as much grading, they don't have as much, compare them to an English teacher who has all this, there is different, I understand that, but they still need to have that
Yeah.
time.
No, I agree.
So,
And like in Dorinda's circumstance, I think by doing that, man, she was given, her classroom teachers were actually getting a few extra minutes. So it makes sense to me.
and that's all this is, like I said, so that hasn't changed
Okay.
any of that. So the section that is in the yellow is again, I guess we just need some clarification.
Okay.
Because
It is confusing.
it is very confusing, because, again, it's somewhat, in a way, contradicts what's in 10. I mean, it's very confusing, and it would really be nice if it was simplified. I'll just put it out there. But, we need to make sure that we keep the 4 individual plans for the teachers whenever they can. And if they have to do whatever else, on the 3rd, 4th, whatever, they need something for it.
Absolutely.
So that's where some of this doesn't make sense in this writing at that point. Because it says they get equivalent of 4 individual planning periods at the very beginning of the yellow portion on page 3. But then it goes in onto page 4 where it talks about that on line 110, it starts talking about the planning and the group things and da-da-da-da-da. And so it acts like, and I have a feeling some administrators are thinking this again because the clarification is just not there. So they're thinking that they can take a 3rd period like every week, and then they can take the 4th one, and then they can take, so it's very confusing here. When can they require it? There's up here on line 104, it actually talks about subbing. So it's just, this whole section here is very confusing. So how do we make sense of all of this? This really needs to be clarified so that everybody can be on the same page. Which there again, we didn't want to bring like new language per se, but on the other hand, I don't know, maybe we should, because this is kind of confusing. Unless we just stipulate for right now that it means X, and we move on for right now, just so that we can continue with what we're doing here. But it's just a clarification statement that, you know, A, B, C, whatever.
So I'm just looking back at some of my notes, just.
Because when you read it, I think the intent of the language and the practice are probably very different in every place.
So I think in principles, you can correct me, please do. But if you're getting, let's say you're getting your planning period, 4 complete planning periods a week. And so if they're using one of those for collaborative planning, is that most, would you say all you guys use, that first one you use,
Yes.
priority is for collaborative planning?
But one of the 6, so the 2 planned periods that an administrator would take, per se, lack of a better word, but one of them is usually collaborative plan, and then one of them is PLC, PD, faculty meeting, whatever. Or we do have some that they take the 2 and both of them are collaborative plan.
Are we talking about the early release Wednesdays?
We're talking about 6 periods. Teachers have 6 planning periods. They have 5 plan periods, and then you have the early release. That's where we came up with the 6 periods way back when this all started.
Mhm.
So basically on Wednesday, there's 2 plan periods on Wednesday.
So they're getting.
Administrators can take 2. And I think this is where the whole mix-up is, because administrators believe they can take that another one because it's early release Wednesday or it's whatever. So then teachers are only getting 3 plan periods, like every week. And it's not a DA school. This is like other schools that they're only getting 3 plan periods. Instead of, because again, this says here 4 plannings, and then it says something else, which is confusing, I will agree. So there needs to be some different language. It just needs to be clarified.
So I think when we get into that 4th is that's why C was put there, was so that they're paid for it.
But then the 3rd one, like I said, they should then be receiving, at this case, for here, flex time for that. So, for example, especially this year, because there's no way somebody can take it within 1 week. That's just not gonna happen.
No.
Due to COVID and everything else. They can't take that flex time right now. They can hardly take anything right now, let alone. So, but that 3rd plan period that they take, so let's say, teacher has collaborative plan on Tuesday and Thursday. All right, they should have the other 4. Well, administrator decides that they need to have a faculty meeting on Wednesday on the early release. Then they get flex time for that. And then if they take another one for subbing or whatever, then the teacher gets paid for that. And that's where I think there's a big confusion, because they're thinking that the early release, that doesn't pertain to this, and it does. Because you need to think of it as 6 plan periods altogether, or we don't worry about that. We go back to saying, okay, well, teachers have 5 individual plan times, Monday through Friday, you can take the early release.
Well,
Like something, but we need some clarification.
what I thought was they have their 5 Monday through Friday, and then one of those might get used for collaborative planning or whatever the case may be. And then if they use another one, that is when they take that flex time, and a lot of them release them on Wednesday because they're not using every Wednesday of the month. They're not using that time.
Some are.
And
Some are
I'm
using
being correct.
every Wednesday afternoon, which means they take the Wednesday afternoon, they don't get it, and then they're taking a Tuesday, let's say, as collaborative plan. So that's their 2 already, and they're not getting that release time on that Wednesday for those certain, and that's why, again, the clarification is not there.
I really
Because
don't
some
plan
admit-
anything on a regular teacher plan period. So if they were to cover for someone else, then they'll get that early release time whenever, like, one came today and said, hey, can I use my time? I need to do something. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, and I don't really look at it as if they cover that week for their plan period, they have to use that time during that plan period. We just, during that day or that week, we just keep note of it, and when they need to use it, and it's there available, that they can leave after school. But normally, all of my time, I do plan for early release Wednesdays, and those times are set up, because I normally do not require collaborative time during their plan period. So to me, they will meet their 5 plan periods, because I don't plan anything for them during that time.
See, I think she's talking about, we have collaborative planning on Thursdays. Everybody in the school, everybody meets that one day.
See, I don't.
See, that's what I'm saying. And that's fine. Every administrator does it different. I'm just saying that the clarification needs to be there, that the teachers, whether they get off, and they don't have anything on the Wednesday, or they do have something on Wednesday, and then they have the other ones, and so therefore then they can sub on Tuesday because they don't have anything, whatever. But there just needs to be clarification that they still should receive 4 individual plan periods out of the 6.
Yeah.
However, the administrator,
I haven't seen that anywhere.
No, because
And that's-
that's why I was concerned when you said the 6.
and see again,
And I
that's
didn't
the
know about 6.
clarification, because again, whether it wasn't
Yeah.
clarified previously, but it was always
I don't mind going back and looking at some of
The 5 plans, and then you have the early release.
And see, I never saw the early release as a plan time. The early release was set for us to have our meetings because we normally do not do anything too much on their plan period. So that early release, I never ever looked at it as a 6th planning period for teachers. It was time for them it was early release, but we were to use that early release how we needed to. And so they either plan together, they do their PLC, they do a cohort, or, and sometimes I'll just say, you know what, we've had enough this week.
Which is fine, either way. I mean, and in that case, they have the 5 individual plans, which is fine. If they want to plan together in their grade level, they plan together. If not, that's.
My question is, where is it in language, in the contract, that 6th period on early release is a 6th plan? That's where I'm trying to figure it out. That's why I'm lost.
I think they've got some proposal here that does incorporate some of that, so we'll give us a minute to read over it, and then I want you to see if we have some questions. Because I actually think it states the purpose of early release Wednesday somewhere else in the contract that is contrary to that being the 6th day or 6th period.
Which in there again, this could be revised to, being in the 5 plan periods, and then, an administrator can only take 1.
And then what?
And that day, Chad, back in the day too, that was, again, never a planned period because that was a professional development day district-wide. And before, we used to have county meetings that took place on that time.
Yeah.
So therefore, it was never ever, to my knowledge, considered as a 6th planning period.
Okay.
Because we used to have that time, and that time was set for, we only had so many, the first Wednesday or whatever Wednesday we could use, and then the other Wednesdays were set up for district-wide stuff that would take place. And then they kind of did away with the district meetings. Yes, they still have, okay, at the high school level, I don't know of any district meetings, district-wide meetings.
Second Wednesday of the month, ESE still.
There's some, not near as many as what it used to be. Because that's why I was saying, like, the first one was for faculty meeting, the second one was for PD, the third one was for.
One was hands off in the school because it had to be a district.
Correct, and then there was a 5th one. When you had a 5th Wednesday, it was like an extra plan time just for teachers, stuff like that. But, and, I mean, be okay too, the language could be written to the fact that you have 5 plan periods in, and administrator can only take 1. So then they can do the Wednesday, and then they have the one other one, to continue what we have now, which having the 4 individual, which would make the same as this, if you did it that way, for right now.
That's what I don't understand where this is coming from, because I thought it was 1 anyway. 1 day that you put.
And see, that's what I'm saying.
But the Wednesdays were not included in that. I could have my faculty meeting, it doesn't count as 2. But I can only take 1 of their plan periods for PLC, or have them do PLCs together.
Correct. What I'm saying though is some administrators are using an additional 1 and thinking that that is okay because they can take 2 out of the 5 in that case. And so that's where I'm saying, again, that clarification, we need that. So that an administrator, whether you do the Wednesday, the 5 individual, however you do it, if that's the case, okay, Wednesday is for whatever, so then we have 5 individual plan periods, then an administrator can take the 1, so then we still have the 4. Which is still what we have now, but again, just a little more clarified as to how we do that. And we're not changing anything at that point, it's just making the language
Clear for everybody.
for everybody at that point.
So I didn't have any meetings today, but like CTE, they pull their own meeting, because they were putting stuff together, so that's their time, they did what they wanted to. Everybody else just worked individually.
And that works great. And like I said, it's just, there's some of them that are taking, like I said, the clarification needs to be there, just.
Okay.
And like I said, however, if you want to do it this way, or you want to do it the other way, you just say that the teachers, you know, and put it in the 5 plan periods, and, you know, 5 plans, administrator can take 1, because of the Wednesday afternoon is used for whatever.
I think what I'd like to do is, I think I have a general idea of where these principals are at with it. But what I'd like to do, and it doesn't, you don't have to, in public meeting here, disclose where some of the major issues are. But if you want to let me know, you know, here's a few schools that would be good examples of where we're seeing a lot of confusion. And that way I can look at their schedules and just run it across what you guys are presenting, or some
Well, I will-
version of
I
what you
will
guys
say-
are presenting.
A lot of it is coming from elementary, because they're thinking that they should have collaborative plans on, for example, a Tuesday, Thursday. And then they also have something else on the Wednesday afternoon, because it's early release and we have whatever. Now, not to say that that's every week, but they do have that. Plus the fact that, okay, they may say, yeah, you can go home this week, whatever. But again, then that would be taking that third at that point. Or they have a PD scheduled on that Wednesday, or whatever. So if that's the case, the Wednesday's fine for the early release, but in that case, then they should only have, okay, Tuesday's your collaborative plan. Not Thursday anymore, you can have it on Tuesday or Thursday, but not both days.
I think because what we got in contract is 135 hours of planning annually. And I believe that's if you take the 9 weeks and spread them across 5 plans per week, right? So if and the Wednesday, I mean, it's a true extra hour at the end of the day. It's a full hour. So I think what if we take a hard look at it, what a lot of people are getting is a lot of times than the hour, and we're still well meeting the 135 hours for the year. I think once you do the hard math on it and break it out of what people are getting, it comes out, it exceeds the 135 hours by a decent margin. So I just want to take a look at it, and I understand exactly what you guys are saying and how you want some things clarified. And I don't know, Dornette, do you guys, I would imagine your people, how many collaborative plans do you have mandated in a week?
One.
Just one? Okay. Do you guys think
There
that?
are some schools that have 2 state
Okay.
mandated.
See, and that's what I'm
Is
saying.
there what now?
There are some DA schools, I believe, that are mandated from the
Yeah.
state to have a 2.
So
I don't
That's
know.
DA
outside-
schools, that's not.
Outside of
other ones.
DA,
Outside
you're
DA.
saying there's other ones? So as I'm looking into this, do you think they might be calling that second one something else other than collaborative plan? So I can have my antenna up looking, I mean, are they calling one collaborative plan and one PLC? Or are
And
they
that's,
calling-
yes.
Any
And they-
required meetings.
It's still a required meeting, whether it's PLC or collaborative plan or whatever, it's still a required meeting that they are asking a teacher to be involved in,
Okay.
or PD or whatever. Because they could be having a PD on, Thursday, we're having PD all day long during your plan period. Because they do that too, so.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is, it's something that you are having the teachers to do. Now, in that case, if that administrator, okay, we're gonna have PD on Thursday because that's the only time we could have it, but you can leave Wednesday afternoon and you can leave and go home. Okay, but you can't have the Tuesday collaborative plan, the Wednesday afternoon, whatever, plus then the Thursday PD. You can't have all of that, in other words.
Unless they're paid for that third interruption.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well,
And that's where, I understand the fact of, okay, well, this presenter, whatever you're doing, they could make it on Wednesday, but they could make it on Thursday. That's no problem, I understand that.
yeah.
But then work around for that.
Well, like I said, I do want to take that back and take a look at it, and if you can tell me where a few of the problems that I can use for examples are, not drag through the mud and make it a big deal with those folks, but I can work with the Reds who are familiar with those schedules and see what makes sense.
The same time and the same part with this, because it is plan time, and that's another reason because of this. It is plan time in the fact that they're doing all the sub coverage for this. And so if, for example, we're doing the same thing, you got collaborative plan on Tuesday, well then you have to sub during your plan on Wednesday, well then all of a sudden you got to sub again on Friday. There went your individual plan times. So again, that's something that needs to be clarified as to how we're gonna do this.
Okay.
Whether we only do it, because yes, so Wednesday afternoons, early release, we don't have, no one needs that. But the individual plan times, then we need to have some clarification in that part.
Okay.
Whether we include early release, however we do this,
Okay.
but we just need some clarification.
Okay. I got you. I think we can, I get what you're saying, and I think we can meld the ideas together and definitely come up with a little bit more clear language.
And that's where we're thinking that some of these, and down the road, maybe they, mirror together or something, but to make it a little, again, easier to understand, but that's why we said that yes, this would probably be okay, but in talking about this in 10, you kind of see where it kind of somewhat contradicts it, so.
Okay.
Okay, so any more questions on that?
I think we're good for the moment there.
Okay, and then it's at the very end on page 5. Again, kind of more of a clarification, except adding the self-directed individual teacher. Because we put in, instead of semesters, put in quarter. And this was a new one that we would, so it's kind of to me it's more of an add-on. The early release every Wednesday during the student school year, purpose for early release Wednesdays, faculty, so forth. Early release days will be provided at the end of each quarter. No, this isn't. No, this is, I think Angela done this. This isn't.
Ms. crossing something off?
No, I think you were thinking of the early,
No, we moved this from,
no. Yeah, we moved it though, but
from
this.
10.
We moved it from 10 to put it in section 9.
Right,
But these are the early release every Wednesday,
yeah.
and that's not what the red is talking
Well,
about.
it just, That's because it says it up above, so I just didn't add extra words. Early release Wednesdays. Change days to Wednesdays.
But it's not done quarterly, this is every
This is not a
Wednesday.
semester time.
This is not,
This is 4 times during the year, we're asking them not to schedule faculty meetings, but give us time to do grades.
right, so this is a different section though than this one.
Yeah, that's
This
different.
is the semester.
There's a planning day before the end of each quarter
Each quarter.
that they have to do that. And then, but back in the day when everybody had semester exams, you know, we kind of made those last few days before the end of the semester, end of the year, early release because they needed that additional time to get a lot of stuff done in those for grading and whatnot.
So you're saying it's not needed because there's already a calendared planning day at the end of each quarter? Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is that reflected in language?
All right. I'm not saying anything yet. I'm still trying to compare the two things. Just,
Well, maybe it's in another section.
This is it, we moved it here.
I thought so too.
yeah, we moved it over.
It wasn't 10, we
Yes.
moved it to 11 to put it as part of early release because we wanted to make it clear that Wednesday was early release day.
And then we took it.
Right, and then we just said this means 4 times a year, those early release Wednesdays include individual planning.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I need a few.
This is the early release days versus the early release Wednesday. So these are your end of the quarter days.
It's your teacher work day
This
at
is
the
the
end
teacher
of
work
each
day at the
quarter.
end of each quarter.
So it's not an early release.
No, it's
No-
not.
Nothing about early
It's
release
just
Wednesday should be on there. It's a student
It's a
holiday,
work day.
teacher work day
Yeah.
at the end of each quarter, but there's nothing, well,
These are teacher work days, not early
and
release.
normally
Yeah.
what that language stated in there was that we could not exceed a half a day of,
PD or
Yeah,
Whatever.
on my proposed from last time, I brought it in as planning days, and it was early release days that we provided at the end of each semester for the purpose of assisting teachers in administering the grading student exams, middle school, high school level, and providing planning time for teachers at the elementary level. So that was the end of semester and end of
Yeah.
year. And then the next section was the early release days, which is every Wednesday. So I guess,
So basically, you would just leave the semester in there.
Just delete it.
No, because he's talking about because we still have the semesters, if we ever would bring back semesters, whatever.
and,
It's an
and what
early
it's
release.
become is we never wanted to take that really back from teachers, but it's kind of common knowledge if when the hurricane comes, that's where we usually go.
The work days.
Well, not necessarily the work days, but those early release days, it was kind of like, okay, well, we kind of know there's not, the level of stuff that used to happen in that week is a lot different than what it used to be. And we kind of acknowledge that, but you guys also acknowledge that we might have to use those for hurricane days or hurricane time. Okay.
So what this should be is the same as what you had said. So
Yeah.
cross off the quarter, keep the semester, but add in that they're self-directed individual planning time. So in other words,
On which ones?
on the red portion.
Okay.
So that, for example, those early release semester days,
we don't have those
we don't
anymore.
have those anymore.
We haven't had those
They're
for,
not on there.
Well, we,
yes, there's,
we haven't
there,
had them in about 3 years, 2 years.
we had to, well.
we had to take them away
But
from
you
the
gotta think,
hurricane.
one was because we had to make up so much time for COVID last year. The year before that, it was a hurricane.
Yeah.
So they're not on the board approved calendar, but they are in contract.
Yes, there's.
They are. So,
We have to this year.
well, we're supposed to.
Supposed to.
Hurricane, right?
Barring any problem.
That's why.
Barring any problem, we are supposed to have have them this year.
Yeah, so,
So, and that's why I said, so in this case, then those 3 days that would be in this case in December, no,
Yes.
December. So it would be December and May. So those 6 days, let's say, those 6 early release times would be for self-directed individual teacher planning time.
So it would really be, December 14th, 15th, and 16th.
And then
And
May,
then on the 17th is a teacher workday.
whatever. Yes.
Yes, that's it. I have a calendar here.
Yes.
It doesn't say workday, but the last day for students is on that Thursday, December 16th.
16.
So that would be an early release day. Then Wednesday automatically is the 15th, would be an early release day. And then you would add the 14th as well if we have early release days at the end of each semester. That
Or
would be
2 or however many we have. Always been 3 because
Well, it's really
it's just
only,
easier.
it's really only 2 because Wednesday was already included.
Correct,
So,
but-
yeah, so I
correct.
guess it really shouldn't probably say in case we ever change the calendar and, well, then I guess that it would, no, it wouldn't, it would always be there.
but that's some of that time that takes people well above the 135 hours of planning annually. So that's, I guess what I would like to know is how that's being used. I mean, I can't really see schools during that amount of time. I know I can tell you that's probably where some comp time is being burned. I don't know, you guys people might be able to speak better to how that time was used, but heck, the last couple of years, we hadn't even been able to do it, so.
And may not get, I mean, who knows, but
I got it. Well, and that,
we
maybe
were just
that,
saying, if it is available, and if it does come,
so
it's nice to have.
maybe that is the thing where if we're gonna leave them alone, it's with the understanding and language that if we have to use them for catastrophic events. Perhaps that's something that. What's that?
I said, we wanna go home too.
Whatever, I know y'all are all hard at work, everybody's there.
I got that.
So, all right, I get what you're saying there. Let me, that's something I need to run past the powers that be, and see. That makes sense, because I've always wondered, because they are not on the board approved calendar. And I think that was because, just the need for flexibility on everybody's part, right?
Probably, because we weren't doing the semester exam, so they didn't have to be put on there anymore, and so.
I don't think anybody really wanted to take a hard look at it for the benefit of everybody whenever those semester exams kind of went by the wayside. But it's funny because we're talking about all this when we know our assessment calendar for next year.
But on the other hand, if you're
Yeah.
doing progress monitoring, that semester time, that would be a good time to be doing those progress monitoring exams.
So I do want to take a look before we spend a whole bunch of time spinning our wheels on it, and then all of a sudden we've got to come up with something totally different because the state says with whatever this progress monitoring is going to be. Because I mean, who knows what that's going to be interesting language, right? And the bills that they introduce. They're so good at figuring out complex issues. So I'm sure it'll just be squeaky clean, no confusion.
Yes.
Okay. So I do feel like as much as I'd love to just, be like, hey, okay on the language today, I do feel like I need to take it back and chew on a little bit more even beyond what we would do in a caucus. So I don't want to waste our time in a caucus with that. So is that what we have on language?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we just have to officially withdraw,
Okay.
Article 12, just to
Gotcha.
put it basically out there that.
Well, I definitely think I appreciate the well thought out language and proposal. So we'll make sure we have. I feel like we're really close.
Yes, and Article 12, just the fact that, withdrawing it, just, accept the promise that we're going to meet more often and try to figure out what we need to do and where we go.
We've got some transition
From here.
in the in the insurance piece, we have an impending retirement of someone who kind of looks over our
I saw that.
insurance. So,
I saw that.
we need a game plan around that, and, I did talk to Scott and said, look, you know, we need to get Josh back over regardless, and get our heads together, So you guys have on here potential COVID and ESSER discussion or MOUs. What do you guys have in mind with that?
Yeah, well, it was just a placeholder that, because every time we talk about money, we talk about
Yes.
that there's gonna be something possibly there, so there's probably not yet much to discuss until we get the final FES data. And then we can start talking about how to.
I'll tell you that when the superintendent told me they're identifying the people for a stakeholder committee, the initial feedback they got from some parent input, that will be someone that will be on there, and also, believe it or not, from some high school students that give her feedback, is they are interested in taking care of teachers. So I think our stakeholders, like I stated last time, are interested in that money, helping out our educators. So I don't have a date on that yet. I know she's trying to finish identifying her people.
Correct.
Okay. I know you guys have spoken.
Yeah, we talked Monday, and she was saying hopefully sometime in November she wanted to
Okay.
start, because, and somewhat have things ready for when money was available
She's probably tired of me bugging her about it.
at that point.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah,
Nah, and she knows that there's still some hold up.
I think everybody knows.
That there's still some hold up, and, you know, but even in talking to Scott, I think his comfort is growing, Mr. Ward, with, you know, entertaining some real talk prior to ESSER 3 actually being released, so the actual funds themselves. So. I saw you guys had on here, well, as far as a TSI subcommittee meeting for us to get back together and just solidify those one more time. Are you guys okay? We just, really, I know your schedule gets cramped, so what would be good for you, Angela?
I just need him to give us a date when he thinks he'll have data, so that we don't
Okay.
pick a date and then find data the next day.
Okay, all right.
That would be silly.
So let me, if we can give you guys a call tomorrow and give you a date that makes sense, and that way make sure it aligns. I saw you guys had a joint bargaining session.
Which would probably want to schedule it after the subcommittee, right?
So-
Another bargaining session, but would that
Oh,
probably be
because
after?
I read joint and I was thinking like, you mean the other collective
Oh,
bargaining?
no.
Okay, that's why I was trying to figure out that, I'm like, so, okay. So, we can definitely, I think we can probably sometime next week or the following week, we can definitely, meet a subcommittee, and we can subcommittee at some point next week.
Or within the next 2 weeks?
Mhm.
So then, would you want to meet the week for bargaining the week before Thanksgiving, or wait until after the break?
I think it might be,
Just to make sure that we would have everything possibly?
yeah.
I have November 9, 10, and 15
Okay.
open.
And then would we have like the following after Thanksgiving?
You said,
She said she had 9, 10, and 15, so
Okay.
9 or 10 would work probably for the subcommittee.
yep,
And then I have 15.
And then she has 15, or we would probably then have to go to the first week, the 29th on.
I'd like, if we can plan for the 9th or 10th, I just wanted, before we solidify those, we can leave them open until tomorrow so we can find out from Mr. Ward and make sure he's available. Are you available 9 or 10? Or is that the week you're out?
Yeah, but I can.
We're fine, though.
virtual from-
Scott and I are fine, and we'll meet with you before that. And then,
Because this would be during the day for the subcommittee, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Virtual.
like
That's fine,
virtual, like we've been
subcommittee,
doing.
Okay, that's fine.
And then how about that midweek of the 29th through the 3rd for a regular bargaining?
Okay, 30th we cannot, middle rep. So, first, second,
The 1st is good for us because that gives them, it's their early release day. No mandatory meetings on that day.
first,
Too soon?
first or second,
What do you guys, I don't know, that's what I need to ask y'all to decide. Would you prefer Wednesday or Thursday? Because I don't know what you guys have going on.
What was the date in November? What was it?
It's December 1st or 2nd.
Oh, December.
Yeah.
We slept through November.
Well, it is the week after Thanksgiving. which is
Yes.
the 8th.
And I'm fine but it's either, I guess, the 1st or the 15th then, right?
15th of November, which would be the Monday.
Which I'm okay with.
I'm okay with, I mean,
Yeah.
because we would have enough time to get, because really we have what, Article 11, that, and then monies, so,
There's not a board meeting that night, is
and not
there?
as of right now.
There better not be. I definitely don't.
And it should be
want to-
anyway, because that's
Yeah, that's
an
the
audit,
3rd
that's,
Monday. The 15th works at our place. What time? On non-Wednesdays, what time works for you
Wednesdays
guys?
has to be
4?
4 or after, 4 or 4:30.
4 o'clock.
I mean, we can do
November
4, and
15th.
then some people just come in when they can at that point, if they're middle school, because we've got a couple,
I like that because I do think waiting until after Thanksgiving puts us too far out.
we got a couple middle school, but,
So what's the address?
201 West Burley, Tavares.
15
Tell
more
I'm there
minutes up
often
the
enough,
road.
can you?
What's that?
Can't tell I'm there often enough, can you? I don't even know the address, I don't even work at the building.
My problem is I start getting combinations of my old addresses.
Combinations of everything.
You might want to grab it.
Is that okay, or is 4:30 be better?
I'm gonna get stuff for the last hour regardless, one way or the other.
Yeah. I
So,
prefer
I mean-
we get started at 4 and then if some people have to trail in, they trail in.
Because usually we don't start like on time, maybe
Yeah.
5 minutes, but still, I mean, it's close to being on time.
That works, 4 o'clock, 15th, and
Okay.
then we'll give a 5-minute grace period, and then we'll might have a few strolling. And I can send you back agenda, and we'll plan to have counter proposal on language from us, and anything else that needs to come forward, that will be updated.
So you need us to send the Word document of the agenda, our Article 10 today and Article 11.
Yes.
What about the second brainstorm on Article 11? With the orange print on it?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, anything you guys present today, if you want to send over, that'd be great.
So depending on what we come back with, then we could possibly TA them that night.
There's a good possibility. Big reason why I don't want to wait till after Thanksgiving. It'll be a real
Well,
Thanksgiving.
that's what I mean, unless you,
Yeah.
think you can TA 10 now.
I think I want to wait just because there is some overlap, and
Okay, all right.
anything else to go to the order?
Who else should I copy besides you, Chad?
Definitely Miss Sycamore.
Are you supposed to?
SIKKEMA,
It's not coming up. Have I never gotten anything?
probably. Or you haven't sent one, maybe.
No, if I got one in the past, it would show up.
SIKKEMA.
Yeah, I don't think she's been included on some of our communication, so
And then at lake.k12.fl.us.
as long as she's on there, I think we're good, and then I usually get, folks if necessary. Mr. Ward needs it, or anybody else looking at
Yeah,
it.
just include me on this to make sure.
Or Elizabeth too.
Yeah, they're already in our file. Okay, counter, possible draft. Got it.
Good job.
And you got the little brainstorms and things?
Yes, I got the possible,
Okay.
one that she's done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Throwing this away.
Okay,
All